Welcome to the Seattle Investors Club podcast with Julie Clark and Joe Bauer, where we share the nuts and bolts of real estate investing from our 20-plus years in the industry. Sit back, relax, listen, and immediately take action. Are you ready? Here we go.
Welcome to the Nuts and Bolts of Real Estate Investing podcast. My name is Joe Bauer, and I'm here with my co-host, Julie Clark. Julie, how you doing today?
I'm doing spectacularly awesome, Joe. The Mountie. That's what Sean and I were talking about. What's fun is while Joe on travels here, guys, just keep things fun. Every country or state that he's in, we're going to make up a new name for him, right? So while he was in Italy, he was Joseph, or while maybe he was in Israel, probably better to call him Joseph. But now, tell us where you're at, Joe.
I'm in Whitehorse, Canada, which is about a day's drive away from getting into Alaska.
Wow. Has that been a beautiful drive through Canada?
It has been so beautiful, but it's very remote. Like, there's not a lot going on. And if you don't hit gas stations right, I could see how you get yourself in trouble.
Right. Totally. Exactly. What are you going to do when how far is the longest stretch now that you're getting towards Alaska that you're going to have to, are you going to have to carry gas or?
No, it's not like that, but I could see how you could get yourself in trouble if you weren't paying attention or you missed one of the stations or towns that you should have filled up at.
Yeah.
And people do carry gas.
Yeah. Sounds like a good idea as far as your mama bear worrying about it. So go get some gas and carry it. I mean, you're carrying all things.
I'm looking at a gas station right now. And speaking of looking at things, what we have seen out here is I think we've seen 3 bears along the side of the road. We've seen probably 24 bison.
Wow.
Yeah, and some other bighorn sheep, that type of thing. Pretty crazy.
Well, God, I was at Melanie Menge's house yesterday having a VIP meeting, I'll call it, and she's moved out to a farm. Hey, Melanie, if you're listening, our friend here in Seattle, and she's got some dang bighorn sheep right at her house, as well as about every other farm animal you can think of. So that was kind of a fun event here. But so today we're going to call Joe the Mountie, and our guest Sean Katona has helped us come up with that name today. So that's your name today, Joe. You okay with that?
I'm ready. I am ready.
Right. Awesome.
Wait. Does that mean I can carry a gun or no?
Yeah, sure. Why not? That and bear spray and gas, right? That's
Sounds
right.
like a big backpack.
Us Clark girls are heading off, flying to Calgary this weekend and going up to Banff for the next week. So super stoked. If any of you guys are into the multi-sport adventure vacation stuff, I highly recommend the Backroads Travel company. Even if you have kids, they have all types of ranges and levels of activities. It is totally just outrageously awesome and worth every dime. So that's what we're up to. So you guys can call me you can make up my Canadian name, right? Since I'm headed up there too. But for our guest here today, we got to make up a name. What are we going to call you, Sean? Do you have a name for yourself? What can we call? We got Sean Katona with us here today. Some of you guys know Sean from back in the day when he was up here in Seattle with us. Simplified Properties. Sean is the managing partner of Simplified Properties, which is a commercial and residential development company. And they're also, I'm reading off your website now, Sean. Simplified Properties is a privately held real estate investment firm founded by our man, Sean Katona. They buy underperforming retail centers and transform them to maximize their potential. He's a full-time real estate investor, landlord, national speaker, former coach to the stars, now kicking ass so much he's focused on his own stuff because he's kicking butt and taking names. Owns properties at least across 4 states, probably soon to be more. And he is our guest today. One problem though, Sean. Say hello. How you doing?
Hi.
Yeah.
I was waiting for a nickname. I was like, what's going to happen here?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to come up with one while we're talking here today. I'll think of one while we're rolling. I'll insert it somebody. But you have one flaw.
Oh, I have many more than that.
One public flaw that I have noticed. You know what that is? You are a husky.
Proud UW Husky, Seattle native.
That's right. There's a little rivalry going on here today. as we do have from time to time on the nuts and bolts of real estate investing. So what I want to say to all you people listening right now is that if you message me or text me, email me, however you can get a hold of me, and you give me a Huck the Fuskies shout out, the first person to do that gets a free annual membership to Seattle Investors Club. That's right.
Ooh.
Let those coups come out of the woodwork here. Go for it, guys. Who wants a free membership? However, if you are a Husky and you are disqualified. So there you go. There you go right there. So we'll see who that is, and we'll give you a shout out next time. So let's jump into this. One of the things that I like about Sean is that he just basically decides what he's going to do, and then he goes after it. And one of the things I saw on your website, Sean, is that you have a quote. I am assuming this is something that you made up. Set a goal so big that you can't achieve it until you grow into the person who can. That's a good one.
One of my favorites for sure. Just like constant and continuous improvement, and we could always reset that. So that's been a fun one.
Is that something that you made up on your own, or did you get that from somebody?
I don't know where I got it, and I searched it and I couldn't find like the origins. So if someone can figure that out, that'd be fun to know.
There you go.
I'm not betting anybody.
Well, I love it. It sounds good. So we're going to jump into it today because I'll just let you guys know, as I told these guys, I've got a landlord issue going on of my own with one of my properties, and I might have to call and talk to this guy for 1 minute during the middle of the podcast where Joe and Sean will keep talking because I have no choice. But, life goes on, business goes on. We just deal with stuff as it comes up. So Joe is going to kick us off today with question numero uno, and we'll see. Let's all get to know and catch up with Sean, see what he's been up to.
Yeah, so Sean, let's get into the backstory here. Let's hear, we know that you're a Husky, you know that you've lived in Seattle. Let's go back further. Where you grew up, how growing up was for you, and at what point did that lead you into wanting to be a real estate investor?
Oh my God, this got personal really quick.
Absolutely, man.
Good deal. So born and raised in Seattle, since I think many listeners are from there, like Renton, kind of Fairwood area. I went to Lindbergh High School. I had a little sister, so grew up. My mom and dad had split up when I was like 4 or 5 years old. So kind of grew up in two households right around that neighborhood. And I guess one of the things that impacted me right away was I saw my mom kind of managing money, I'd say less than perfectly, where my dad had like a very traditional job, very disciplined. And so it gave me a little bit of a thirst to have the means to do what I wanted. And like, she would have moments where she was literally emotional, like buying groceries at the store just because things weren't going, perfectly financially. And so I remember picking up the book that so many of us know now, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and reading that and just feeling like those ideas really, really resonated, and that, real estate could be the answer to some of the problems that I'd seen, her experience growing up. And I knew that I never wanted to have, a shortage of means or a shortage of money or have that limit me in any way. So that definitely lit a fire in my belly. I think problem was that like that book just didn't have the addresses of the houses to go by and how to execute it. But definitely from a pretty young age, I was curious and excited and fascinated by like what that life could be if you really did, quote unquote, get out of the rat race, right?
Yeah. Are you one of those guys? Like we've had several people on the podcast. They're like, yeah, in middle school, I started getting interested in real estate, or in high school, I got my real estate license when I was 18. Are you one of those guys, or did it come for you later in your 20s or something?
I think I must have read that when I was like 17-ish. So I was in high school, and I remember buying a Carlton Sheets program off of an infomercial to learn and get going. I think by the time I did that, I was probably out of high school, in college. And I just remember like, my parents being supportive of that, but it was a very traditional program, right? Go to school and go out and get a good job. And so that was basically the path that I followed. I I started working at Microsoft right as I graduated. Of course, I got fired on my second day on the job, so it didn't last long.
Why is that? That's a good juicy one.
It was not an HR violation. Thank you, Julie. But, the team that I joined was unprofitable. So they had lopped about 80 people that week. And so everyone was just walking around like a zombie. And what happened is people with 10 years of experience were all jumping into the next closest job fit locally. And so I ended up casting a little bit of a wider net, took a job within Microsoft, getting rehired on the Xbox team, but of all places down in Santa Monica, California. So that was really my first time to kind of spread my wings. I left, the Pacific Northwest, my family, my friends, everything that I knew, and moved down to that local office to sit with all the MSN folks who were selling ads to the automotive industry and the entertainment industry. And so we integrated those brands in and around the Xbox platform so they could reach 18 to 34-year-old males. So kind of worked well for my marketing background that I studied at UW to plug into that and basically get paid to play video games. It was the best corporate job you could get.
Nice. Wow. Well, that's why you actually have a skill set. I was telling Joe, I mentioned to you before we got started here that your online presence always looks really good. I know you're like, Joe, help me out. I'm like, well, I don't know, man. Looks like you're doing pretty good on your online stuff. It's probably comes from your days doing all that kind of stuff, right?
I think it was helpful to see like what the Fortune 500 marketers do, all the things that they look at and measure. Because like in real estate, there's similar numbers, right? You got to think about who's your audience, right person with the right message at the right time. How many times you touch them, what platforms can you access them on? Where do you find motivated sellers, whether it's residential or, commercial buildings? So all those things, make sense. I mean, every business owner, whether they're an investor or a landlord, also has to be a great marketer or find someone who is, if you want deal flow, if you want to raise capital. I think that's probably been one of the most helpful skills
right.
or things to learn how to do well in this business. And I suspect so many others.
I mean, we're all in the marketing business, and it just is a matter of the product or service that we sell is real estate, right? But we're all really in the marketing business. That's how I always think of it. And that is, man, if you can get that skill set down and the right message, I mean, the rest I think falls into place. That's to me, it's I think the hardest spot, right?
And like the difference between people who are constantly struggling to find a deal or to raise the capital, whatever it is, like there is so many properties out there. There's so much capital out there, but a lot of people aren't doing the activity consistently to stay in front of those folks. And it's a numbers game, right? Like any sales, like you talk to enough people and add enough value and solve problems, like those things are all going to fall in place.
Right. So let's go back to now you're at Microsoft and you're at Xbox. What happens next?
Yeah. So, making a decent living, starting to save up a little bit of money, getting a couple commission checks. And then all of a sudden, like, what do you do with the money? So I thought, well, I'll just go buy a property back in my hometown of Seattle. So my first deal was 2009 in SeaTac. I kind of nailed that timing coincidentally. So I don't know if there was a whole lot of skill involved, but I basically fumbled my way through what I thought would be a rental. I was down there swinging hammers. I invited all my friends and family who would come support to come help and work for beer or a few dollars to get that place cleaned up and turned around. And by the time we were all done, it was basically cash flow break even and even losing a little bit of money. So I certainly screwed the numbers up there. And it turned into like an accidental flip because I could make money selling it, but it wasn't really a great rental after it all panned out. So I accidentally did my first deal 2009, took those proceeds, bought another duplex in SeaTac. That one was a lot juicier from a cash flow standpoint.
So it didn't scare you off, that experience. What was your mentality coming out of that? Like, oh, okay, now I know I'm going to go do it better now.
Yeah, my reality was I don't know. I'm really inexperienced. There's a ton of mistakes that were made, and I think I got lucky on one, thank goodness. But that I needed some help and some guidance, and I went out and sought coaches and mentors, and tried to figure out how to do this business at a higher level. So I was encouraged to learn that people were doing it, and they made a real business and a career out of this. And I did the quick math. It was like, hey, if I did 2 or 3 of these a year, that's an annual salary, and I could knock them out in a couple of weeks and not have to work for the man.
And did you join Fortune Builders at that point? I know we're all ex or current. I guess we're current. We're lifers once you're in.
So I didn't do a whole lot because I blew through my whole nest egg buying that duplex, and then basically was in have to save backup mode for the down payment, and that is not a scalable model. So I think in 2012 I found those guys, or they found me. And I got involved in that program. And so things really started to catapult at that point. By mid 2013, I left corporate America. I'd gone full time, and, we started, I think we did 6 deals the first year, and then 12 deals. And then, I think the year after that, we did 20 plus deals, combination of rentals, wholesales, and flips.
And were you still making money off all those deals during that time? I know we were in the market rise, so it's almost hard to screw up. Even if you screw up, the appreciation was starting to cover stuff, right? A lot of people got sick during that time. Did you still have some mistakes? Did you lose any money? We have a new podcast series. It's called My First 3 Deals. And we've had a couple people on. We have some other people booked coming up, but it's just interesting, the people's backstory. So when you started in flipping in the 12 and the numbers started growing annually that you were doing, how was that going? Or were you still having bumps?
I was pretty disciplined. Like, I always had someone double check my deals, a second, third set of eyes. Those years were great. I mean, we were just ripping, and I was hiring, and I was growing. And it wasn't till I got married, the week we got married, 2015, we bought 5 houses. And at that point, I had an acquisitions manager, acquisition director. They were basically greenlit. I'm like, hey, we've done 50 plus deals. We got a good rhythm going. And 2 of those ended up being really, really tough. We were off on the resale value, or the ARV. We were under on construction cost. I moved back to California at that point, and I was just like out of sight, out of mind. I wasn't there managing things well, and both of those deals, or 2 of those 5 deals, went really sideways, and it took a long time to recover from. I mean, I'll just be completely honest. I lost 6 figures on each of those back to back.
Right.
That stings.
Well, you know what I like about this, Sean, is that you were super experienced at that point. You knew what was going on. You knew what to do, and you still lost money. Everybody's got to, and it's probably because you took your eye off the ball, and you were still systematized. I actually know somebody that does, we'll say 10, 20 deals at one time, and they still have massive problems because they can't, or their costs are too high because they simply can't keep watch over everybody. Even if you're can keep your contractors busy all the time. The sad part about our business is you can't really get married to anyone because, now these guys that you keep full-time busy, cranking out your flips and stuff like that, they know you're not watching, and they start short-timing you. They start taking too long, right? They're all kinds of that. I think that's the reality, is if finding the way to have, you got to have somebody watching the shop at all times, right?
And I learned the really hard and expensive lesson of I have to double check personally, every acquisition that we greenlit. And, I could have done a better job of managing construction, and I may not have had the right people in the right positions at the time. So, I got to own that one.
It's interesting because I've been in that world before, and I always felt for myself, and I feel about that way in my own life, still operate that way, that there's 3 to 5 things that you just don't delegate, right? There's just, 3 to 5 things that you have to stay responsible for. People are always looking for a way to do the least amount of work or do nothing, then get on Facebook and say, see, I don't do anything, and my machine is running without me. I think that's all fluff and a little bit of bullshit, or they're taking some hits more than we know from time to time. Because I really believe, even if you are the leader, that's just me. I mean, I'm nobody, you know, I'm just talking out from my own experience that there are certain things, as you learn too, that you have to, you know, you can't delegate. You got to spend a little bit of time watching the shop on the most important top few things, like making sure the insurance for all your properties is in place, right? That's something I would want to make sure, right? That, you know, very stuff that can take you down if it's not handled and buttoned up properly. You know, that's just a simple example, but, you know, goes to show, right?
It's probably, you know, I was kind of at the threshold where I either have to get more involved, which I was trying to step back, right, and let the business run itself with good managers, kind of the E-Myth model. And I either had to hire better people, like a true construction manager, project manager who could do that full time. And then you're like, all right, I got to do enough scale here and volume where I can pay someone's salary.
Right.
And spread it out across 5 or 10 deals. And then same thing with the acquisitions. They got to be buying enough where they can make a decent living.
Right.
And then I had to decide, do I want to do this all remotely from 1,000 miles away or kind of steer the ship, which is ultimately what I decided to do, go for kind of a more simple, less management intensive. I guess that's kind of what led me into commercial, was took a step back and thought, well, you know, what am I really trying to accomplish here? Do I want to build this huge business with all these employees and overhead and staff that is just like a monster flipping machine? Or wait a minute, the goal all the way back in the beginning was more passive income, safety, security, cash flow, and just have, you know, our assets and our dollars going to work for us every day versus us doing it.
It's easy to get caught up in the excitement or the hype, right?
And how many deals did I do this year?
Stupid,
how many deals did you do? And like,
right.
wait a minute, really,
which
how much money?
Defines nothing, right? It defines nothing because, as we say every week on this podcast, a successful real estate investor is somebody who accomplishes their own personal goals. Has nothing to do with anybody else. The guy that does 2 deals a year because his goal was to take his family on a $30,000 vacation every year and that pays for it, and that's his goal and he accomplishes, that is a successful investor. Has nothing to do with anything else. It's all individual, right? But it's easy to get caught up in it. Everybody gets caught up in it probably because of the social media and all that other stuff, right? They have a moment of time where they get caught up into it. And then the sooner you can learn that, you know, it's all about what you want your life story to be, and that, you know, there's no judgment. If the people that are judging you, those are the people that are currently caught up in that bullshit, right? And you don't need to worry about them anyways. So I think it's all good. Good for you for recognizing that and making that shift. So let's move on a little bit, because I know that you have something going on today too. We want to get through all these questions. So now, how do you split up your time, you know, between being a husband, a dad, and an investor and raising money and all that stuff these days? Do you have any rules that you've created for yourself, or how do you manage your time? You know, like Joe, he has days that he does certain things, right? I don't necessarily operate that way. I think we each have our own way, but what's your way to get?
It's funny. All right. So in theory, I spend 1/3 of my time finding the next deal, leasing up our existing properties, and then raising capital to continue to buy as much as I possibly want. And you know, today my focus is predominantly on commercial buildings, mostly retail shopping centers. I look mostly in Arizona because it's relatively close and I get pretty good return on investment there. And you know, I'm doing probably 2 to 3 deals a year, but these are multi-million-dollar deals, and each one of them throws off, you know, 6+ figures of cash flow, has tremendous tax advantages, and yeah, juggling that with the two babies and kind of the rest of. I still do have some rental, like single-family homes, some legacy stuff in portfolio, so those are nice. They're kind of just on autopilot, and every month those get paid like clockwork. A number of those up in Seattle. Let's see, we're in SeaTac, Federal Way, Lakewood, like just, you know, places we found a couple flips that made great sense as rentals. So I kept those in portfolio, refied them, you know, into those monies for into those deals for next to no money down with long-term fixed rate debt on there. And now it just like today it's an opportunity cost thing. So if I can do one deal or one more deal, and it can be a large, commercial property, it takes just as much time to find it, negotiate it, do the loan docs, lease it up just for a much, much bigger payday. So that's what got me excited. And it's a lot less to manage, right? I have 1 or 2 deals going versus 15 simultaneously.
Right. I mean, the time frame to fruition, I imagine, is longer unless you specifically, have some sort of zero-in target where you can accomplish it in 12 months or something like that, just based on leases and things like that need to turn. But that's awesome. You've simplified your life. So, and then did you get to a point like, that is it that, your wife works so you have some income there, or did you get to a point with your rental cash flow properties? Because, doing your first commercial deal could take, like I said, like 2 years, 18 months from start to finish, at least, if you're going to essentially buy it, do what you need to do and sell it. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it did. It took me a long time to learn it and to get a deal that I was like, all right, this is going to be a solid single or double. I didn't want to take a chance on a so-so deal for my first one, but when we got it, it was a few $1 million. And by the time we had it fully stabilized, I think the NOI was just over 300,000. So, we had a couple $100,000 a year in cash flow just out of that single property.
How did you get there though? I mean, I want to let people know like that's, you got that after you accomplished it, or was it cash flowing from day one?
It cash flowed reasonably well, but it was a very unstabilized rent roll. So almost every tenant had gone month to month. It was a bank-owned property, so the assignment on that one was to go in and, revitalize all the leases, renew them, bring the rents to market. I ended up, switching out a few tenants. We booted one. We brought in a couple others. We demised a suite that was 3,000 feet into, 3 smaller suites.
Did you use the money you raised to buy it? You built those, that cash you needed to accomplish those things? Or were you trying to accomplish that out of cash flow? I think my point is that you couldn't live off that cash flow because it either had to go into the building, or maybe you could. I assume you have investors that you have to pay if there's cash flow. I'm saying, how did you live? How did you make that transition where you knew you weren't going to get paid for a year or two, right? Did
gotcha.
You have money from your flips that you had saved up, or your wife has a job and carried you guys?
Yeah.
The average Joe, how do they make the transition?
At that point, we could cover our nut just with our single family rentals. We had a nice little nest egg going, but that deal more or less supported itself. We raised the downstroke on that with, friends and family, accredited investor, many whom invested with me on residential deals.
Yep.
And so they had, their first opportunity with me, at least, to come in as an equity partner and participate in the cash flow, plus the potential profit if we sold it, plus the tax advantages that we can generate with depreciation. And with that deal, we did quarterly distributions for the cash flow. So that was a little bit of money to live off of. But, today, Brittany still works. She has an awesome job in corporate America. And I think she chooses to do that because she loves it. And it helps us, accelerate things even more,
Heck yeah.
Having W-2 banks love.
Yes. We tell everybody, don't quit your job. That is just a sound bite. Don't quit your job if you're trying to grow your real estate business. Wait till you have it going and have everything you need where you can make that decision. But don't quit your job to do it, to start doing it. Keep your day job as all you can, or somebody in your family or your team, so you can qualify for loans, so you're more bankable. So, people get confused about that. Like, I'm going to quit my job so I can focus on real estate. Well, you just cut your nose off to spite your face because now you don't qualify for any loans.
Right. It's kind of like a rat race thing, right? Or the flywheel starts to really, really get ripping because, like, wait a minute, we can live off of our rental property cash flow, salary and bonuses is gravy from one spouse. And then if you do another deal and make a nice profit. It's like you could literally save everything, that we're making out of these deals. We haven't had to touch it. And so now you can build your nest egg, you can build your balance sheet. When we go to show, lenders our personal financial statements, like, they're excited to give you money. It's funny when you don't need it, they want to give it to you, right? And when you really need it, they're not as willing. But I think I would probably counsel folks to do, something similar, like don't turn off the income streams.
Right.
When you're really stressed, where's the next deal going to come from? That can make everyone sleep a lot more soundly at night.
Right. So let's move on here. Are you interested in value add and sell, or buy, hold, or, some sort of entitlement with upside on zoning on the underperforming centers that you're going after? Are you finding, is there like some focus? Like what are you looking for? Or are you just opportunistic?
Yeah. Opportunistic / value add kind of depends who you ask, but I generally try and find something that's broken that I can fix. Same with houses, right? So a building that's been mismanaged, it's got vacancy, it might have deferred maintenance, or it just needs to be cosmetically freshened up. And if I do that, and if we, fix up the rent roll and we bring it to pro forma value where it is cash flowing as best it possibly can, the building can literally double in value. And so that's the opportunity that I look for. What I'm doing on these two most recent deals is accomplish that, bring it to market, test the market. So we're going to list one next week at a 6.25 cap. And if someone comes along and pays it, I'll sell. And if not, I'm in a perfect position to refinance, return all of my investor capital to them that came into the deal initially. And we can sit on that for 5, 7, 10 years, or, potentially, a long, long time. And so I guess anything that I buy would have at least 25 or 30% upside or equity, so that I have the option to do both, either make a bunch of money on the exit or refi it and have zero cash into the deal. Kind of similar formula to the rental properties. Like then you can keep doing it over and over and over again, right? Because you never run into a shortage of capital. It's really the quality deals that are the bottleneck for most folks.
And why retail centers? Off the cuff, I would think, boy, that's an asset class that's getting pummeled because of the Amazons and stuff like that. And, I hear stuff in my commercial world that I don't talk about a lot, that I'm I used to own a strip center myself, a 45,000 square foot center here in Washington, and renovated it and released it and all that stuff. But, that asset class is getting pummeled a bit. The mom and pops are not, because they still need that, or, it's just the,
It's a little contrarian, right? What's a apartment deal trading for in Puget Sound right now? Cap rate, what, 4%?
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
Okay, so I can go to Phoenix, Greater Phoenix, and get into a shopping center deal at a 7 or an 8 cap. So I'm double the returns. And I've been looking mostly at kind of neighborhood centers, service centric, a little bit more internet resistant. And so, it's people who are going to get their nails done, their dog groomed. I got a veterinarian in one. I got an Allstate insurance agent.
So that's what I'm asking. Is it more like your tenant base isn't like a big box anchor or some huge anchor? It's more the mom and pops that are, people are going to still need to go there, or, they're not being impacted by Amazon and stuff. But those, I'll say, would you agree, are the tenants that, traditionally can't afford as much of the higher retail rents, right? The mom and pops. So there's a balance there, right? Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, I hear you. I also, I have stayed away from those big boxes and kind of that legacy retail because it is getting cleansed right now. And some of those dinosaurs didn't adapt. And so, Amazon has shown them what's up.
Yeah.
And I also sleep pretty soundly. My one building's got, I think, 12 tenants in it. And so if any one of those guys leaves, it's not a big deal, kind of like an apartment building.
Right.
Those 1,200, 1,500 foot boxes are pretty quick to refill. I could put a lot of different types of businesses in there. And so that's not going to, if I had a single tenant, J.C. Penney's or Sears, that would completely wipe you out potentially.
Right.
This is just not that nature. It's a little bit more diversified. So I feel
Do you have a strike zone that you're looking for 40,000 square feet and under, or are you looking at like 10 to 12,000 feet or?
I've been doing it more dollars wise. So I'm looking like 3 to 6 million because it's a little bit lower than what like an institutional buyer could who's got limitless money, but a little bit bigger than your 1031 buyer who just sold his 4-unit apartment in Everett.
Got you. Right.
So there's that spot where you maybe don't have quite as much competition, but if I buy a building for 2 million, turn around and sell it for 3.5, or cash flow a couple $100,000 a year. So I like those numbers, and I've been looking predominantly at deals where we could make at least 7 figures, if we're going to spend a year or two working on it.
And are you doing the leasing, or are you using a property manager or real estate brokers to do the leasing?
I always hire leasing brokers so I can look up in CoStar who the strongest folks are in that neighborhood and in that asset class. And so I'll put one of them on the assignment.
And are you, do you have a real estate license or not? I can't remember.
I was never smart enough to pass the test.
Yeah. Righto. We won't jump into that today, right? But yeah, I get you. So, I think my experience with the retail centers and all that commercial stuff is that, the best thing that we ever did to protect ourselves, other than, doing big forecasting of, TIs and commissions, because TIs and commissions, if you have turnover, right? If you're full all the time, that's great. But if you have any turnover, that can take a big bite. Those can be expensive things depending on, maybe less so with like the mom and pop stuff, but everybody's got a specialty build out, even I'm looking at this picture with a dog groomer or a groomer that you have, right? They need plumbing and sinks and all that kind of stuff, right? My biggest skill set was making sure from like an asset manager side that you're not having your leases, you're spreading out your leases, right? So you have a stacking plan and your leases aren't expiring at the same time. So no one tenant is, or a group of tenants is going to go vacant at the same time. If for some reason, some oversupply comes down the street and there's somebody's building a new shopping center or just did a renovation that's attractive and they're going to want to go down there. And most importantly, tying that into your loan, what you're planning to do, whether refinancing or putting permanent debt on there, right? Because you can't have once you're in leases with retail centers, right? Those are longer term leases. I don't know if are you guys doing like 1 to 3 or 3 to 5 year or 10-year leases, or?
Yeah, that's another reason I love retail, is because yes, there is heavy lifting up front, but once you get that 5, 7, 10-year deal inked, it's pretty low maintenance after that.
Right.
And, we're triple net leases, so they pay their share of the common area maintenance, the taxes, the insurance, and it's very predictable what our take home is going to be.
And I'd say the only risk in those situations, again, is you absolutely have to know what your financing plan is, because you don't have 100% control of the market or what's going to happen. And if those leases on year 3, 5, or whatever come up right at the same time or in the same year or in the same 90 days or 6 months that you're trying, because it can unless you lease them up really fast, if rents go down and you have to refinance, right, you have to be able to recover from that or make a plan. I knew a lot of people that were, got dinged as rents went down in retail, upon lease turnover, and they didn't have, their loan was maturing. So they were going to have to refinance, but rent went down, right? You don't want to have to go through any of those experiences in the same year you're trying to refinance, is my point. You get what I'm saying? I know you think of all these things as well, but having a stacking plan related to all that stuff was, for me, the key to success in managing, unforeseen things that are out of my control that might impact me later. It feels good when it's full, and but if somebody for some reason leaves, if 3 of them out of the 12 left at the same time and you had to refinance the same year, it could really screw you up unless you were getting increases in your rent, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's all good stuff. I'm so excited for you, man, because I love watching you. You went and killed it on the single family flips and all that stuff, had your bumps like everybody else. But I guess I'll say, as a mama bear, I'm proud of you to see you take control of life simplify it, yet maximize your returns. And you guys out there, there's no reason why you have to start. You can dream big from the beginning. It's just that you have to go educate yourself on those, those topics, right? Everybody's so quick. All the gurus are out there focusing on teaching flipping and all that other stuff. But I think people come to find after a while that that's more like a stepping stone, to get started. It seems like all that stuff. So good for you. Awesome stuff. So who were your, let me ask you a little mechanics. Do you have to provide proof of funds? Like when you were getting started on buying these deals, more sophisticated maybe or not, do you find that you're having to use commercial brokers more than you did on the residential side to get access to deals on the side of the coin?
Yeah, I definitely love brokers, both deal brokers, debt brokers. I mean, certainly more so than in residential. With these larger deals, there's just fewer of them to go around. And so, they spend their days cold calling, all these folks that have had the properties for 10, 20 years. And so if they can bring us a pocket listing, it's lucrative for them and for me. So, my deal flow is predominantly through brokers, through direct mail, through having, a decent online presence. I do subscribe to CoStar just so I can, have a tool like the MLS to find these projects. And then I do LoopNet for a lot of the advertising to fill them up and find them.
Are you buying the deals that you end up buying? Are they being managed and leased by the owners themselves, or is there a broker that does their leasing? Is there a common denominator there? Is there before you buy it, are the sellers you're buying from employing brokers to do their leasing, or are they more like trying to do it all themselves and that's makes them ripe for picking? Did we lose him? You guys with me?
He's there. I think Sean, you may be on mute. There you go.
Technical difficulties. Can you guys hear him?
Sometimes.
Can't hear you. Did you move locations? Joe?
Yeah, I'm there.
How's it going?
I'm just hanging out.
Looks like we lost Sean here for a minute, guys. We'll give him a minute to try and get back on. Otherwise, it looks like we'll have to wrap up. Maybe I'll have to tell some jokes instead.
Are you leaving for Canada today?
No, we're leaving. Today's Thursday. We're leaving Saturday.
Okay.
Yeah, can't wait. I'm trying not to look at anything to do with BAMP so I get a complete surprise when I get there. But maybe see if shoot him a text or something, see if he's going to be on there. So in the meantime, I'll just backfill as though we're rounding out guys here and remind you guys all, we might have lost Sean, we might not. This is real-time stuff. So if we did, then maybe we'll do a part B with him. But in the meantime, I'll let you know that and remind you that Seattle Investors Club has a weekly broker investor mastermind every Tuesday in Burien at Angelo's. Are you back with us?
Am I? Can you hear me?
You are. There he is.
Oh, I switched over to the car so we could keep going because I was like, we got so much juicy stuff to talk about still.
Yeah. Well, now we can't hear you very loud.
Oh,
it's all good. You're good. I'll level
yeah, now
out.
I'm on the cell phone, so there'll be a big drop in quality, but I don't remember where I lost you.
You got it covered, Joe?
Yep.
Okay. So I was asking you, Sean, if when you're buying the centers, do you find that the sellers that you're buying from, are they using brokers to do their leasing, or are they doing their own leasing on the common denominator of the properties that you're buying? So I'm saying is maybe there's a broker involved because they're using a leasing agent, or are the properties you're buying mom and pop managed?
It's both. I'd say the mom and pop managed ones tend to have more problems, but you could also have owners who are out of money, and so they're not willing to put, let's say, dollars into TI or pay proper commissions. And so that's when you start to see the buildings falling apart, or the brokers lose incentive to keep the boxes full. So I'm just looking for problems. People are going through financial hardship, or a building is being mismanaged, or they're trying to manage it out of state. Like California investors have a funny reputation around other parts of the country. Like, they got the money, they buy this out of state building, and then they run it into the ground.
Yeah.
Some of them. but yeah, like, or these people have so much bloody money that if they have a few vacancies and their building's at 60%, like, it's really no big deal. They've got
They let it sit there.
Clear. So what do they care if they're losing $10,000 a month?
So what do you think the riskiest part of what you're doing now is? Where's the risk for you?
I mean, if interest rates took a huge jump, that would be a bugger. Like, I want to lock in loans with as long of a term as I possibly can and lock the rate so that I have predictability. Then it's more about managing the rent roll, right? And talking to my tenants, making sure that they're happy, that we're supporting what they need to run successful businesses. I think as long as I'm like really disciplined on the buy side, and we do a thorough job of due diligence and all of our homework, and we don't take some sort of huge hit on local area rents. I don't like buying in places that have a ton of vacancy, and I want there to be a constrained market so it's easier for me to lease, and it's more favorable for the landlord when it comes to negotiating lease renewals and rents. So I try and find the most broken building in a great pocket, just like we would with a rental house or a single family.
Right. I think you touched on something there. I mean, I think all the management stuff can be figured out, and the scariest part to me would be the making sure that your property remains financeable as the way that you projected, which could be impacted by rents going down or interest rates going up, right? Because you get a 30-year loan, right?
Right. Yeah, no, it's generally matched up to the term of the lease. So if you got a 5-year deal, it's going to be a 5-year balloon. If you do a 10-year lease to Starbucks, they'll probably give you a 10-year loan. And the bankers I talk to have that comfort, like, hey, we'll give you a loan as long as you've got income.
And so, I mean, any retail center are going to stagger lease terms. You don't have to have everybody on it. Not all tenants have to be on a 5-year lease. All tenants, they don't have to actually lease.
Not making, I should give it simultaneously, or take down a multi-million-dollar shopping center on my first commercial deal, like, because I had people that were looking over my shoulder, double checking my numbers, and saying, hey, yeah, like, this looks great. Like, if we do so on this deal, you'll still be just fine.
And do you have any like podcasts on your topic that you're interested in, commercial real estate, that you listened to today that you feel is great info, or any books or mentors that other people have access to?
Yeah, there's a couple. Of course, I can't remember the names off the top of my head, but there's a few like very consistent commercial ones where they're doing just this. Like, hey, let's bring on another commercial guest, and they're doing a couple 100-unit apartment buildings, and they're doing office, and they're doing industrial, and so
maybe we'll have Joe follow up with you, and when you're not driving, and you can tell him maybe what that is, and we can put it in our show notes if that sounds good to you guys. Good stuff. So what's next for you? What's your 12-month goal, and then what's your 5-month or 5-year goal? 12 months and then 5 years.
So we should close that new Tucson shopping center next week. We're going to list the Goodyear shopping center. So we'll either sell that or refinance it. So that'll have, another building in portfolio. I'm actually in escrow on a Montana deal. So hopefully that one comes together. So, I'm thinking buy 3 buildings a year, sell one, each one of those jumps up the cash flow 6 figures. Keeps me in a very favorable tax environment. And, I think, that would put a dozen or so buildings in portfolio on a 5-year time frame. We could live pretty comfortably, do more or less what we want to do and still have a pretty low maintenance portfolio. Like, at that point, you could put a property management team on it.
Is that why you chose retail? Because it's, has the opportunity to pretty much run itself, sort of, easier than a lot, even apartments are, constantly needs management. retail.
Not exclusively, because I came into a pretty big apartment building deal too. Like we got part ownership in a Dallas deal. It's 180 units, and that one's professionally managed. I go where the deals make sense. And right now, multifamily is so frothy, and people are spending so much money to buy units that I can't make the numbers pencil.
And everybody on the planet's a syndicator.
Well, and everyone understands it, and it's easy, and it doesn't have that zombie apocalypse retail headline, and so no one's scared of it. I'm like, great, if everyone's spooked about retail right now and I can get double the returns, that's a fun place to play.
Right.
Because I can get great returns, not just for my family, but for our friends and family who come into deals with us that, don't want to do the active stuff, but they go out and they work their awesome job, and we can make their money work as hard as they do.
I mean, you hit on a good point here. They all zigged left and you just zigged right. That's pretty much it, right? Is that you went after something people be shying away from, and you're smart enough to understand what is so that niche that might still survive in the changing environment they're in, right? You drive by, see a full building, right? The people that are going to first when it starts to happen is they want to go buddy up with the banks or side banks and commercial lenders that are the ones that are going to get called and have to work out the loans. That's who you want to buddy up with. Talk about how or direct message me, or you know how to reach me, Julie at SeattleInvestorsClub.com. It is a absolutely powerful format where you have maybe 15, 20 people sitting around a table looking at each other, having a conversation, helping each other with their problems. It's free coaching. You can bring all your deals, all your problems. Everybody's welcome. And I think you owe it to yourself to come one time to see what I'm talking about. And other than that, that's all I got. Of course, we'd like you guys to engage with us here on Seattle Investors Club. You don't have to join the club to come to that meetup. You can just come. You don't even have to RSVP. You can find it on meetups.com if you search Seattle Investors Club, or like I said, you can contact myself or Joe, or at least join us on our Facebook page at SeattleInvestorsClub.com, where we announce those and get on our email list so you get notified of those meetups, the new ones and the old ones. So other than that, Joe, how can they find the details of this podcast today so we can wrap up and go make some money?
Yeah, you can get the full show notes at SeattleInvestorsClub.com/84. That's SeattleInvestorsClub.com/84. And guys, we'd love to have a few reviews on the show this week. We love seeing those reviews. So head over to SeattleInvestorsClub.com/iTunes and give us a review, and make sure you hit subscribe because it's totally free.
Good stuff. Well, Sean, when you're up in Seattle, give me a call when you're coming, and we want to get together and hang out. So
awesome. You guys are awesome. Thanks for doing this. It's amazing to help everyone out there and to get time with you, Julie, and Joe for putting all this together. It's really cool, really special, and I had a blast catching up with you.
You know what the coolest part is, guys, is that I think, Sean, that we've known you probably since, I don't know, maybe even the 2012, 2013, 14 type days. I mean, we've probably known each other for, 4 to 5 years, and you've even moved out of town. And what's cool about the, Pacific Northwest or the investor community and the people that come out of it is that what I love and I feel is an advantage is that we've all been hanging out for 4 or 5 years. And we've all had this evolution of where we started and where we've gone, and the ability to still tap into each other and continue to learn all the stories, both of the new podcast series we have with the new people telling us their deals, but also somebody like you, right? That has been around and we can still connect with, and you live out of state now. I mean, I just love it that we're able to stay in contact with all our friends here. So tell Brittany we said hi. Congratulations. Are you working your way towards number 2?
Number 2 arrived. Ellie is 4 months already.
Oh my gosh.
2 under 2 in diapers.
2 under 2. Yeah, that's a full-time job as it is. So more power to you there. But yeah, give us a shout when you get back up here. And other than that, guys, everybody have a safe summer if you're traveling, and we'll see you again soon.
Take care, guys.
Thanks for listening to the Seattle Investors Club podcast. If you have questions that you'd like to have answered on the show, shoot us an email at info@seattleinvestorsclub.com. Now go out, take that action, and build that real estate business. Thanks for listening.